The void above caressed burned. A wound in reality tore open, spilling impossible energies across the vacuum. Stars dimmed in protest as space-time convulsed, folded, and finally ruptured. From this maelstrom of warp energy, a single object tumbled forth, wreathed in Ceruan flames that should not exist in the airless void. The anomaly plummeted toward the tomb world below, a streak of golden orange against the darkness. Across the barren wastes of Karas, ancient machines stirred, buried for millennia beneath rust-cold sand. Proximity alarms triggered automated defense protocols. Green luminescence flickered to life in forgotten chambers as the first of the Necron warriors rose from their stasis tombs. Their metal forms wrought from living metal that remembered its shape even after eons of slumber reassembled atom by atom. Margot Xerxes Hestian observed the anomaly's descent through augmented eyes. The Explorator fleet had established a research outpost on Karest mere weeks prior, following whispers of Architect buried beneath the sands. His mechandrites twitched with anticipation as he calculated the anomaly's trajectory. "Omnissiah be praised," he intoned, his vox-modified voice echoing through the command chamber of his survey vessel. The signatures matched nothing in the Mechanicus archives. Beside him, Skitari Alpha Carl 17 stood at rigid attention. "Shall we dispatch recovery teams?" Margos Hestian's augmented brain processed the question for precisely 1.7 seconds. "Yes, bring it to me intact. The machine god has delivered knowledge to the faithful." The object struck Karast with devastating force, carving a kilometre-long trench through ancient ruins before coming to rest in a perfect hemisphere of glass. Sand fused by unimaginable heat. Steam rose from the impact site as the gulf between atmospheric temperature and the object's superheated shell created localized weather patterns. From the center of this destruction rose a figure armored in orange and gold. Its form suggested human proportions but moved with mechanical precision. A green visor gleamed where a face should be. The suit's right arm terminated not in a hand but in a weapon unlike any Imperial design, glowing with internal power. Samus Aran surveyed the alien landscape, her suit systems already cataloguing atmospheric composition, gravitational variances and radiation levels. The last mission replayed in her memory. The space station, the Metroids, the interdimensional gate that should have been destroyed, then the collapse, location unknown. Her suit's artificial intelligence reported. Quantum signature analysis indicates dimensional displacement, chronological markers inconsistent with origin universe. She raised her arm cannon, scanning for threats. The suit sensors pinged multiple metallic signatures moving beneath the surface. Hundreds, thousands, an entire civilization of mechanical beings stirring to wakefulness. Her visor flickered, adapting to the strange electromagnetic emissions from the ruin surrounding her. Data streamed across her field of vision, impossible to pass fully. One thing became immediately clear. This was not home. This was somewhere else entirely, somewhere hostile. The ground trembled. 20 meters ahead. The sand began to sink, forming a perfect circle that widened with each passing second. From this growing pit, a pyramid of black stone emerged, rising skyward with impossible speed and precision. Green energy coursed through hieroglyphic patterns etched into its surface. Samus activated her scan visor, attempting to analyze the structure. The readings made no sense. The material registered simultaneously as stone, metal, and energy. It existed partly in dimensions her instruments could not properly measure. From the base of the pyramid, figures emerged. Skeletal warriors of a living metal marched in perfect unison, their eye sockets burning with green fire. Each carried weapons that hummed with particle energies her suit struggled to classify. They moved with machine precision but possessed an unmistakable malevolence that transcended programming. Threat assessment, she suboculized. Unknown hostiles, weapon systems foreign to all catalogue technologies, caution advised. Sus raised her arm cannon as the first rank of Necron warriors levelled their Gauss flares at her position. The strange green energy building in their weapons registered as both particle and wave, matter and antimatter. Organic entity detected announced a hollow metallic voice that seemed to emanate from the pyramid itself. Classification, anomalous, threat level, significant response protocol initiated. The first volley of Gauss fire crossed the distance in an instant. Samus leapt skyward, her jump boosters propelling her 30 meters into the air As the sand where she had stood was molecularly disassembled by the Gauss beams, atoms separated and harvested by the Necron weapons technology. She twisted in mid-air, her arm cannon reconfiguring to power beam mode. Golden energy coalesced at the barrel before discharging in a rapid burst. The shot struck 2 Necron warriors, burning through their metallic chassis with unexpected effectiveness. The machine staggered but did not fall. Before her eyes their wounds began to close, living metal flowing like mercury to restore their forms. Phase shift detected, her suit worn. Unknown reintegration protocol active in hostile units. From the opposite direction came the whine of grav engines. 3 rust-red transports bearing the half-skull icon of the Adeptus Mechanicus descended toward the impact site, their hulls bristling with weapons, Qatari rangers deployed from their sides even before they touched down. Red robes billowing in the wind as their radium carbons trained on both Samus and the Necrons. Caught between 2 unknown forces, Samus made a tactical assessment. The skull-faced machines moved with grim purpose, but lacked the cold perfection of the metal skeletons. They were cyborgs, not pure machines, their movements betraying the organic components beneath their augmentations. The lead transport hovered 50 miss away. From its central ramp descended a figure more machine than man, multiple mechanical arms extending from his back, each tipped with different tools or weapons. His face was a mask of metal with glowing red optics that fixed on Samus with clinical interest. Fascinating Maros Hestian's voice carried across the battlefield through external voxcasters, a construct of unknown origin. Secure it for analysis. Before either force could advance further, the pyramid pulsed with emerald light. A shock wave of energy expanded outward, temporarily disrupting Samos's visor and causing the Mechanicus vehicles to shudder and drop several meters before their engines compensated. From the pyramid's apex emerged a towering figure. Unlike the skeletal warriors, this being wore ornate armor of black and gold, a headdress reminiscent of ancient Egyptian pharaohs, framing a face of polished metal. In one hand, it held a staff topped with a glowing crystal. In the other, a blade that seemed to drink the very light around it. "I am Overlord Sekhmet," the figure announced, its voice resonating not through air, but directly into the minds of all present. "This world is the dominion of the solemn Nace dynasty. All intruders shall be harvested." With a gesture from the Overlord, the ground itself came alive. The sand shifted and coalesced into scarab-like constructs that swarmed toward both Samus and the Mechanicus forces. Each metallic beetle contained within it the molecular disassembly technology of the larger Gauss weapons capable of reducing matter to its component atoms in seconds. Samus switched to her ice beam, freezing swaths of the mechanical scarabs in place. Thekatari opened fire with their radium carbines. The radioactive rounds causing minimal damage to the Necron constructs, but disrupting their reanimation protocols temporarily. Margos Hestian analyzed the battlefield through multiple spectral bands. The unknown construct, clearly female in design, displayed weapon systems and defensive capabilities far beyond Imperial technology. Such knowledge could elevate him to the highest ranks of the Mechanicus. "Capture the orange construct," he commanded his forces. "Priority Omega, all other objectives secondary." Thekatari changed formation, attempting to flank Samus while maintaining defensive positions against the Necron advance. Their movements were coordinated through the nospheric link shared by all Mechanicus forces, allowing them to function as a single organism rather than individual soldiers. Samus recognized the tactical shift immediately. Both forces now considered her the primary target. She needed space, information, and time to assess her situation. Activating her morph ball configuration, she contracted into a sphere of energy and metal, dropping a series of bombs that detonated in sequence, creating a wall of explosions between herself and her pursuers. Using the distraction, she accelerated away from the battlefield, scanning for elevated terrain that would provide tactical advantage. Her suit systems continued to analyze the strange energies permeating this reality, attempting to classify them according to known parameters. The readings remained confounding. The Necron Overlord observed her retreat with cold calculation. "An interesting specimen," Sekhmet communicated to his warriors. "Its technology bears similarities to the old ones. Capture it for study. Its secrets may prove useful against the Silent King." Across the wastes of Karast, more Necron structures began to rise from beneath the sands. Monoliths, obelisks, and pylons formed a complex geometric pattern, across thousands of square kilm, channeling strange energies through the planet's crust. The tomb world was awakening fully, responding to the presence of intruders and the commands of its overlord. Smooze reached a ridge of black stone overlooking the expanding Necron complex. Her visor highlighted energy flows connecting the structures, forming a lattice of power that seemed to be altering the fundamental properties of space-time around them. The Mechanicus forces were retreating to a defensive position around their larger vessels, clearly outmatched by the rising Necron presence. Analysis complete, her suit reported. Dimensional constants confirm extra-dimensional translocation. Current reality operates under different physical laws, power systems at 73% capacity, Chozo technology partially incompatible with local energy matrix. A screaming sound cut through the air. Looking up, Samus witnessed new vessels entering the atmosphere, their hulls black as night and adorned with spikes and horrific iconography. Unlike the methodical precision of the Mechanicus, or the cold geometry of the Necrons, these craft moved with predatory aggression. New contacts detected, her suit warned. Biological signatures present, weapon systems active and targeting all forces below. From the lead vessel, a voice boomed, amplified by warp-tainted technology to carry impossible distances. Blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne. The complexity of her situation had just increased exponentially. Samus checked her weapon systems and prepared for battle. Whatever these new entities were, their intentions were clear. This strange new universe seemed intent on testing her to her limits. She would not be found wanting. The Chaos Warband struck with berserk fury. Drop pods crashed into the desert, disgorging red-armoured warriors who charged toward both Necron and Mechanicus lines, with chain axes roaring. Their armour bore the mark of Khorne, the Blood God, one of the 4 chaos powers that ruled the immaterium of this universe. Sus observed the new combatants with growing concern. Unlike the methodical Necrons or the calculating Mechanicus, these warriors fought with savage joy, laughing as they were wounded, roaring as they cleaved through metal bodies with weapons that seemed to hunger for destruction. Biological entities infected with unknown energy signature, her suit reported. Caution. Exposure to energy field may compromise suit integrity. Recommend minimal contact. The Chaos Space Marines cut through the first line of Necron warriors, their chain axes struggling against the living metal, but eventually overcoming it through sheer sustained violence. What the weapons lacked in elegant technology, they made up for in brute destructive power, enhanced by the blessing of their dark god. Overlord Sakmet raised his staff, unleashing a beam of energy that reduced 3 Chaos Marines to their component atoms. Their armour, flesh, and the warp energy sustaining them were separated into base elements and harvested by Necron technology. Abominations, the Overlord inoned. The dynasties slumbered too long. The lesser races have devolved even further. The Mechanicus forces used the chaos of battle to advance under cover of the larger conflict. Rangers moved in coordinated patterns towards Samus's position, their nospheric link allowing them to communicate without Vox transmissions. Magos Hestian had marked the orange-armoured figure as priority alpha, the other conflicts merely a distraction from the true prize. Samus registered the approaching eye on her motion tracker, 20 units moving in a pincer formation to limit her escape options. Their augmented bodies registered as partially organic, partially mechanical, a strange hybrid that reminded her of space pirates, but with more methodical integration of technology. She switched her beam weapon to plasma configuration and prepared for engagement. As the first crested the ridge, she fired a charged shot that melted through its torso, fusing mechanical and organic components into slag. The other units adjusted their approach, splitting into smaller teams to divide her attention. Radium rounds impacted her shield, the radioactive material causing minimal damage, but registering as a potential threat with prolonged exposure. Samus leapt backward, her thrusters carrying her in a controlled arc over the advancing. At the apex of her jump, she fired a spread of missiles that detonated among their ranks, disrupting their formation. The artifact demonstrates unprecedented mobility and firepower, Magos Hestian noted in his combat log. Its machine spirit is aggressive but disciplined, a perfect addition to the Omnissiah's arsenal. Once properly sanctified and controlled, the battle below had escalated to catastrophic proportions. The Khorne Berserkers had reached the central Necron pyramid, scaling its sides while battling immortal warriors that phased in and out of reality. The Chaos Lord leading the warband, a massive figure in Terminator armor, dueled with Necron Lich Guard at the pyramid's base, his daemon weapon howling with pleasure as it tasted the energy of the ancient constructs. Samus recognized an opportunity. With all forces engaged in the larger conflict, she could potentially access one of the Mechanicus vessels and extract information about this universe. Knowledge was survival, and she needed to understand the rules of this reality if she was to find a way home, or at least survive long enough to establish a new existence. She activated her speed booster, accelerating down the far side of the ridge toward the Mechanicus landing zone. Her suit's energy reserves dipped with each sustained burst of speed. The Choso technology struggling to draw power from this universe's different energy matrix. The rearmost Mechanicus vessel remained minimally guarded, its crew having joined the battle to secure what they believed was valuable architech. Samus approached cautiously, scanning for defensive systems. The ship's machine spirit registered her presence, activating auto-turrets that swiveled to track her movement. Before the weapons could fire, Samus launched a single missile at the vessel's sensor array, temporarily blinding its targeting systems. In the momentary confusion, she grapple-beamed the ship's underside, attaching to a maintenance hatch. Using her scan visor, she interfaced with the locking mechanism, unraveling its cogitation patterns. Imperial technology was strange, a blend of advanced principles and deliberate obfuscation, as though knowledge itself was considered dangerous and was hidden behind layers of ritual and encryption. The hatch yielded to her efforts, sliding open to reveal the ship's dimly lit interior. Red emergency lighting cast long shadows across corridors lined with cables and pipes that resembled organic systems more than mechanical components. The vessel felt alive in an unsettling way, its technology purposefully designed to mimic biological forms. Smos moved silently through the corridors, avoiding the few tech priests still aboard. Their cybernetically enhanced senses made stealth difficult, but not impossible for someone of her experience. She located what appeared to be a data repository, a chamber filled with humming servers and coitators, attended by a single robed figure whose body was more mechondrite than flesh. She waited for the tech priest to complete his rituals and exit before entering the chamber. The knowledge repository pulsed with energy as data flowed through its systems. Samus interfaced her suit with the nearest terminal, allowing her AI to translate the bizarre language and coding structures. Warning: system protected by multiple layers of security. Her suit advised: attempting bypass. Significant risk of detection. Information began to flow into her suit's memory banks. Fragments at first, then more coherent data streams as her technology adapted to the Imperial coding language. The history of a galaxy spanning millions of years unfolded before her. The Age of Terror, the Dark Age of Technology, the Horus Heresy, the Time of Ending. Names and places that held no meaning for her but defined the terrible reality she now inhabited. The God Emperor of mankind interred in the Golden Throne, the Chaos Gods who ruled the Warp, the Eldar and their fallen empire, the Orcs and their endless war, the Tyranids consuming all in their path, and the Necrons, ancient beyond reckoning, awakening from their tomb worlds to reclaim what was once theirs. Intrusion detected, announced a metallic voice from the chamber entrance. Unknown technology accessing restricted archives, deploying countermeasures. Samus turned to face a tech priest more heavily augmented than any she had seen thus far. His body was a mass of mechanical components, with only the barest suggestion of human origin. His face entirely replaced by a sensor array that glowed with red malevolence. Fascinating construct, the tech priest eyed. Your machine spirit will be purified and integrated into the Omnissiah's grace. Mecha Endrites whipped toward her, tipped with cutting tools and interface probes designed to breach her armor and access the systems within. Samus fired a precision shot that severed two of the mechanical tendrils, but the others continued their advance, splitting and multiplying as damage response protocols activated. Hostile system attempting to breach suit integrity. Her AI warned, unknown technological principles detected. Countermeasures active but degrading. Samus switched to her wave beam, firing a burst that passed through solid matter to strike the tech priest's internal systems. The energy disrupted his augmentics, causing momentary paralysis as conflicting machine instructions cascaded through his systems. Using this advantage, she disabled the remaining mechondrites with targeted plasma fire. The tech priest's vox emitter released a sound between scream and static. Emergency protocol, Alpha, intruder in data repository, All units respond. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. Samus knew her time was limited. She completed the data transfer, downloading as much information as her suit could process about this universe, its factions, technologies, and threats. The knowledge was fractured and incomplete, filtered through the dogmatic lens of the Adeptus Mechanicus, but it would provide a foundation for survival. As she prepared to retreat, her suit sensors detected a massive energy spike from the Necron Pyramid. The battle outside had reached a critical phase. The Chaos Warband had breached the pyramid's outer defenses, and in response the Necron Overlord had activated technology beyond even his control. Warning: spatial distortion detected. Gravitational anomalies increasing exponentially. Through the ship's viewports, Samus witnessed reality itself begin to warp around the Necron complex. The blackstone structures pulsed with energy that bent light, creating a rippling effect across the landscape. The Chaos vessels in low orbit found themselves unable to maintain position, dragged inexorably toward the planet's surface by artificial gravity wells of impossible strength. The Mechanicus ship shuddered as its engines strained against the growing gravitational pull. Tech priests and servitors rushed through the corridors, performing emergency rites of stabilization as systems failed under the unnatural stress. Samus accessed the ship's external cameras, observing the battlefield through multiple angles. The Necron Pyramid had transformed, its surfaces flowing like liquid metal to reveal an inner structure of impossible geometry. At its heart pulsed a device that her scanners could barely comprehend, a singularity held in perfect stasis, neither consuming nor releasing energy, but instead redirecting it along vectors that should not exist. Spatial manipulation technology detected, her suit reported, similarity to dimensional gate technology. 63% possible transit mechanism. The realization struck her immediately. If the Necron device operated on principles similar to dimensional gates, it might offer a path home, or at least away from this nightmarish reality. But reaching it would mean fighting through 3 hostile forces in the midst of an escalating battle. Magos Hestion had reached the same conclusion from his command vessel. The Necron technology represented knowledge beyond even the most sacred Mechanicus archives. Such power could not be allowed to remain in Xenos hands regardless of the cost to secure it. All forces converge on the central pyramid, he commanded. The Omnissiah demands we capture the null device intact, deploy the Electra Priests and remaining Catapron units. The Chaos Lord sensed the growing power as well. His warp-touched mind, perceiving the device's function through means beyond mortal understanding. The Metal Ones have created a path, he roared to his warriors, a path to new realms, new blood, new skulls. Khorne will feast on galaxies. Overlord Sakhamet stood at the device's controls, his ancient mind calculating possibilities with cold precision. The intruders had forced his hand, compelling the activation of the Celestial Orrery prototype before proper containment protocols were established. The device was drawing power from dimensional boundaries themselves, threatening to tear open the fabric between realities. Samus made her decision. Breaking free from the Mechanicus vessel, she leapt into the maelstrom of battle below. Her suit's energy reserves were depleting faster now, the strange physics of this dimension and the pull of the Necron device creating a drain on her systems. She had perhaps one opportunity to reach the pyramid's heart before her weapons and defenses failed completely. The battlefield had transformed into a scene of apocalyptic chaos. Rangers dueled with Necron warriors amid swarms of mechanical scarabs. Khorne berserkers carved bloody paths through both forces, their chain axes roaring with demonic hunger. Catapron battle servitors deployed from Mechanicus transports, their heavy weaponry creating kill zones that briefly held back the tide of enemies. Samus activated her speed booster, building momentum as she weaved through the carnage. Her visor highlighted the shortest path to the pyramid, calculating probabilities and threat assessments in real time. When her velocity reached maximum, she triggered the Shine Spark technique, converting her momentum into a single explosive burst of directed energy. She became a comet of blue fire, streaking through the battlefield too fast for targeting systems to track. Necron Gauss fire and Mechanicus lass weapons carved the air around her, but her trajectory carried her above the worst of the fighting. The pyramid's entrance loomed ahead, a tear-shaped portal of liquid metal that pulsed with green energy. The Chaos Lord saw her approach and moved to intercept, his Terminator armor propelling him into her path with unexpected speed. His daemon weapon, A massive axe wrapped in screaming faces swung in an arc meant to cleave her in two. Samus fired a super missile mid-flight, the explosion temporarily blinding the Chaos Lord. She adjusted her vector slightly, passing over his shoulder as his axe cut through empty air. The missile's secondary effect, a localized electromagnetic pulse, disrupted his armor's systems just long enough for her to clear his position without engagement. She crashed through the pyramid entrance, the energy of her shine spark dissipating against the Necron architecture. Inside, the structure defied conventional physics. Corridors twisted at impossible angles, rooms existed in multiple locations simultaneously, and gravity shifted with each step. Her visor struggled to render the environment accurately, the display flickering between contradictory spatial arrangements. Warning: reality distortion affecting navigation systems. Recommend visual guidance only. At the pyramid's heart, Overlord Sekhmet stood before the singularity device, his skeletal hands manipulating controls of flowing metal. The chamber itself was a perfect sphere, its walls inscribed with mathematical formulas so complex they seemed to move and shift as Samus observed them. "The anomaly arrives," Sekhmet stated without turning. "Your presence was calculated, your actions predicted, your technology desired." Sus raised her arm cannon, charging a plasma beam that illuminated the chamber with its golden glow. "I want passage away from this dimension. Your device can provide it." The Necron Overlord's face was incapable of expression, yet somehow conveyed ancient amusement. "You understand nothing of what you ask. This is not merely a doorway between worlds. It is a key to rewriting the very laws that govern reality." He gestured toward the singularity, a perfect black sphere suspended in a lattice of green energy. The Old Ones believed the universe was defined by immutable constants. We proved them wrong 60 million years ago. Now we return to complete our work. From the shadows of the chamber emerged Lichguard, elite Necron warriors wielding hyperphase swords and dispersion shields. They moved to surround Samus, their weapons humming with energy that could disrupt the atomic bonds of any matter they touched. "Your armor bears the mark of creators not unlike those we once fought," Sekhmet continued. "Biological beings who wielded technology beyond their understanding. They too sought to preserve life through artificial means. They too failed." Samus assessed her tactical options. Direct confrontation with the Lich Guard would deplete her remaining energy reserves with no guarantee of success. The singularity device remained her primary objective, but reaching it meant passing the Overlord himself. "What do you want?" she asked, buying time as her suit analyzed the device's operation. "Want? Necrons do not want. We calculate, we determine, we implement." Sekhmet turned fully toward her, his eyes burning with green fire. "Your arrival was an unexpected variable in a 60 million year equation. Now you are factored into the calculation." A tremendous impact shook the pyramid. The Chaos and Mechanicus forces had breached the outer defences and were fighting their way toward the central chamber. The Overlord's attention briefly shifted to new threat assessments appearing in his consciousness. Samus seized the momentary distraction, firing a charged ice beam at the nearest Lich Guard. The absolute zero temperature flash froze its living metal, rendering it temporarily immobile. She followed with a missile barrage that scattered the remaining guards, creating a path toward the singularity device. Overlord Sekhmet moved with impossible speed, interposing himself between Samus and the controls. His staff discharged a beam of molecular disruption energy that would have atomized any conventional armor. Samus's suit absorbed the impact, shields flaring bright blue as they struggled to maintain integrity. "Energy reserves critical," her AI warned. "Shield failure imminent." The chamber doors exploded inward. Magos Hestian entered, surrounded by a cohort of electropriests whose bodies crackled with voltic energy. Behind them came the Chaos Lord, his Terminator armor dented and scorched, but his daemon weapon still howling for blood. "The device belongs to the Omnissiah," Hestian declared, his mechandrites extending toward the control interface. "Blood for the Blood God," roared the Chaos Lord, charging toward the Necron Overlord with berserker fury. Three forces converged on the singularity. The Necron Overlord raised his staff, unleashing a wave of energy that knocked back all combatants. The pyramid itself seemed to respond to his will, the walls flowing like quicks to separate the intruders. Samus found herself isolated in a section of the chamber, with the singularity device now exposed before her. Her suit's analysis was complete. The operational principles of the Necron technology partially decoded. It was indeed a gateway, but far more dangerous than any she had encountered before. Rather than connecting fixed points in space-time, it rewrote the underlying structure of reality itself, creating connections where none could naturally exist. The battle raged around her as walls shifted and flowed, alternatively separating and combining the combatants in unpredictable patterns. Through gaps in the liquid metal architecture, she witnessed Magos Hestian grappling with the Chaos Lord mechadendrites against Daemon Weapon. The Necron Overlord fought to regain control of his pyramid as the structure responded to the conflicting energies of warp and materium colliding within its bounds. This was her only chance. Samus approached the singularity controls, her scan visor translating the Necron interface into parameters her suit could manipulate. The device was already active, drawing power from dimensional boundaries to create a stable passage. All she needed was to specify coordinates to direct its immense power toward a destination. Her home world was beyond reach, existing in a universe whose quantum signature was no longer detectable, but the device offered other possibilities, other realities where her technology might function properly, where the threats might be familiar rather than the incomprehensible horrors of this war-torn galaxy. As her armoured hand reached for the control interface, the singularity pulsed as if sensing her intention. The black sphere expanded slightly, tendrils of non-light extending toward her suit. Her energy tanks registered an unexpected surge as the singularity resonated with her Choso technology, establishing a connection that transcended physical contact. Warning: unknown energy integration in progress, suit parameters exceeding design limitations. The chamber around her began to dissolve as the battle between Necron, Mechanicus and Chaos forces reached its climax. Magos Hestian had breached the Chaos Lord's Terminator armor, mechanical tendrils burrowing into corrupted flesh. The Chaos Warrior responded by driving his daemon axe through the Magos's torso, both combatants locked in mutual destruction. Overlord Sakhmet fought to reach the singularity controls, his ancient form moving with determination despite the damage he had sustained. His dynasty's plans required the device intact, its power harnessed for the Necron resurgence rather than squandered on dimensional anomalies. Samus made her choice. Rather than attempt to escape alone, she would deny all factions the power they sought. She overloaded her power beam, channeling every remaining joule of energy from her suit into a single devastating shot, aimed at the containment field around the singularity. The beam struck with catastrophic force. The containment field fluctuated, green energy arcing wildly across the chamber. The singularity itself remained intact, but its stability degraded rapidly, the perfect sphere developing ripples that distorted space-time around it. No. Sakhmet's voice resonated through the chamber as he witnessed his dynasty's prize weapon destabilizing. You cannot comprehend what you have done. The singularity collapsed inward, then expanded in a shockwave of pure gravitational force. Reality itself seemed to crack around it, fractures appearing in the air as fundamental forces briefly ceased to function properly. Samus was lifted from her feet, her suit systems overwhelmed by energies that defied classification. In the final moment before catastrophe, she witnessed Overlord Sakhmet reaching for the control interface, his ancient knowledge perhaps sufficient to avert total destruction. The Chaos Lord and Mios Hestian, still locked in combat, were pulled toward the singularity as its gravitational pull increased exponentially. Then darkness consciousness returned slowly in fragments of sensation and data. Samus's visor flickered with emergency notifications, her suit operating on minimum power reserves. She lay in a crater of black glass, the desert around her transformed by forces beyond conventional understanding. Rising to her feet, she surveyed the landscape. The Necron pyramid was gone, as was any sign of the Mechanicus vessels or Chaos War band. Where the structure had stood was now a perfect hemisphere of nothingness, a void in reality itself that her senses refused to acknowledge. Status report. She sub-vocalized. Power systems 17%, weapons limited functionality, dimensional analysis inconclusive. She had survived but at significant cost. Her suit's more advanced functions remained offline, power conservation protocols limiting her to basic mobility and defensive systems. The singularity device was destroyed or perhaps transported elsewhere in the catastrophic implosion, taking with it any immediate hope of finding a path home. movement caught her attention. From beneath the sands, metallic forms began to emerge. Not the Necron warriors she'd fought before, but smaller constructs. Their purpose clearly search and recovery rather than combat. The tomb world was responding to the loss of its master. Automated systems activating contingency protocols established eons ago. In the distance, she detected new signals. Imperial ships entering orbit drawn by the psychic shockwave of the Singularity's collapse. The Mechanicus outpost had likely sent distress calls before its destruction, and now reinforcements arrived to secure whatever remained of value. Samus checked her ammunition and energy reserves. Not enough for another prolonged battle. She needed time to recover, to adapt, to understand this universe more fully before confronting its powers again. The data she had downloaded from the Mechanicus vessel remained in her suit's memory, a starting point for navigation in this hostile reality. She activated her stealth systems, the suit's adaptive camouflage, reducing her visibility to minimal levels. As the Imperial ships began their descent toward the battlefield, she moved away from the impact zone, heading toward a range of mountains her scanners had detected on the horizon. There she would find shelter, time to repair, and perhaps resources to sustain her technology. This universe, with its eternal war and ancient horrors, was now her reality. The Imperium, the Necrons, the forces of chaos, all would consider her technology a prize worth any cost to obtain. Her existence would be one of constant vigilance, adaptation, and survival, not unlike the life she'd known before. As she crested a dune, Samus paused to look back at the battlefield. The scarred landscape bore witness to forces beyond mortal comprehension. Powers that had waged war across the stars since before humanity's ancestors first walked upright. Yet in this brief clash, she had held her own, denied them all their prize, and survived to continue her journey. In the vault of stars above Karas, new vessels appeared. Sleek craft of bone-white wraith bones slipped from the void, their presence barely registering on conventional auguries. The Alari had come, drawn by prophecies of a warrior from beyond the Veil, who wielded technology that echoed their own lost empire. The war for Karast and for Samus Aran had only just begun. 3 standard months passed in the shadow of the Ghoul Stars. Samus had established a temporary sanctuary within a network of caverns beneath the Obsidian Peaks, a mountain range far from the primary tomb complexes of Karst. The natural formations provided adequate shielding from orbital scans, while the residual radiation from nearby Necron structures confused more detailed sweeps of the region. Her suit had partially recovered, power levels stabilized at 63% capacity. The strange energy matrix of this reality remained incompatible with her Choso technology, necessitating careful conservation and improvised solutions. She had adapted as always, cannibalizing abandoned Mechanicus equipment to create rudimentary charging systems. The data stolen from the Mechanicus vessel provided a fragmented but valuable understanding of the universe she now inhabited. This galaxy was ancient beyond reckoning, its history a tapestry of war, extinction and rebirth spanning millions of years. Humanity had risen, fallen and risen again under the guidance of their God-Emperor, a being of immense psychic power now interred in a life support throne on Terra. Threat assessment updated, her suit reported primary hostiles identified. Imperium of Man, specifically Adeptus Mechanicus. Interest in suit technology. Secondary Necron Dynasty quantum signature analysis indicates partial awakening of additional tomb complexes across Northern Hemisphere. Samus reviewed the tactical display projected on her visor. Imperial forces had established a permanent presence on Karast, a fortress monastery constructed at the original Mechanicus landing site. The structure's architecture matched patterns identified as belonging to the Adeptus Astarteses, the transhuman warriors who served as the Emperor's foremost defenders. Their presence indicated the Imperium's growing interest in whatever had transpired at the Necron Pyramid. The Singularity device was gone, but its effects lingered. Her scanners detected spatial distortions spreading outward from the impact site, tears in reality that occasionally pulsed with unknown energies. The Imperium had cordoned off the area with immense void shields and automated defense turrets, preventing access even to their own forces. A proximity alert flashed across her visor. Movement detected 3 km east, approaching her position with deliberate stealth. Not the thunderous advance of Imperial forces or the cold precision of Necron constructs, but something more graceful, almost predatory in its careful stalking. Samus activated her thermal visor, scanning the approaches to her sanctuary. The heat signatures registered just above ambient temperature, barely visible against the backdrop of volcanic rock. 8 figures moved in perfect coordination, their weapons unlike the crude designs of the Imperium or the geometric symmetry of Necron technology. The Eldari had found her. She had encountered references to their kind in the Mechanicus archives, an ancient species predating humanity by millions of years, their civilization brought low by their own excesses. The survivors lived nomadic lives aboard vast craft worlds or raided from hidden realms within the webway, a network of dimensional corridors that connected points across the galaxy. Samus switched to her plasma beam, the weapon's energy signature masked by the ambient radiation of the mountains. She would not fire first, but neither would she be taken unaware. The Eldari were described as capricious and enigmatic, their motivations often incomprehensible to human understanding. Whether they came as potential allies or new hunters remained to be seen. The lead figure materialized from the shadows 30 min from the cavern entrance, seeming to step out of reality itself. Clad in form-fitting armor of midnight blue with bone-white helmets, they carried rifles of elegant design that hummed with potential energy. Rangers, according to the Mechanicus classification, scouts and pathfinders for the Eldari forces. "We know you observe us, traveller from beyond the veil," the leader spoke, voice melodic yet carrying easily across the distance. "The Farseer Iana sends greetings and offers parley. Your fate intertwines with ours in ways even she cannot fully discern." Samus considered her options. The Eldari had made no aggressive moves, and unlike the Imperium or Necrons, had announced their presence rather than attacking immediately. Information was as valuable as ammunition in her current situation, and these beings might provide insights unavailable from Imperial archives. She emerged from the cavern, arm cannon lowered, but ready. The Eldari Rangers tensed momentarily before recognizing the gesture as one of cautious neutrality. Their leader removed their helmet, revealing features of inhuman perfection, angular and symmetrical beyond what evolution alone could produce. "I am Elaric Moonshade of Craftworld Altway," the Ranger announced. "Your arrival was witnessed in the SCE of Fate, a thread of possibility that should not exist yet burns brighter than any witnessed in millennia." "What do you want from me?" Samus asked, her external vox emitters translating her words. "Want?" Eric smiled, the expression both beautiful and disturbing in its perfection. "The Eldari do not deal in simplicities of want. We navigate currents of fate that span eons. Your presence represents a deviation, a path untrodden. The Farseer would know where it leads and what it portends for our dying race." Before Samus could respond, her motion trackers registered multiple new contacts approaching rapidly from the north. Imperial drop pods descending on pillars of fire. Their trajectory indicated precise targeting, impossible unless her sanctuary had been compromised. "The monkey have tracked us," Eric stated, unsurprised. "Their librarian detected our psychic spore despite our wards. Samus accessed her tactical systems. 20 drop pods, each carrying Space Marines of the Black Templars chapter according to their markings. Fanatics, even by the standards of the Imperium, sworn to purge all Xeno's life without mercy or hesitation. The data indicated they would extend the same hatred to her, classified as she was as both Xeno's technology and potential heresy. "We cannot linger," Elaric continued. "Come with us now, and the Farseer will provide the answers you seek. Remain and face the Emperor's most zealous servants alone. The decision required no deliberation." Samus had survived this long by recognizing when tactical withdrawal represented the optimal strategy. The Eldari offered information at minimum, and potentially a path toward more permanent solutions to her predicament. "Lead on," she replied, activating her suit's energy conservation protocols. Elaric gestured toward what appeared to be empty air. Reality rippled, revealing a tear in space that shimmered with internal light, a webway gate hidden from Imperial sensors through technology that manipulated perception itself. "Quickly," the Ranger urged as the drop pods crashed into the mountainside a kilometre away. "The gate will seal once we have passed." Samus followed the Eldari Rangers through the portal, her sensors recording extreme spatial distortion as conventional physics gave way to the non-Euclidean geometry of the webway. The transition lasted mere seconds before she emerged into a chamber of breathtaking proportions and impossible architecture. Curves and arches of wraithbone rose to heights that defied perspective, their surfaces adorned with runes and symbols that seemed to move when viewed peripherally. Light emanated not from discrete sources but from the material itself, casting no shadows but illuminating with perfect clarity. In the chamber's centre stood a figure whose presence commanded attention despite her slender frame. Farsia Iana Arianal of Ulway wore armour of black and bone adorned with spirit stones and runes of protection. Her helmet was removed, revealing ancient eyes that held wisdom and sorrow in equal measure. In one hand she carried a singing spear, in the other a staff topped with a ghostly flame that cast no heat. "The anomaly stands before us," Anna spoke, her voice resonating with subtle harmonic overtones. "Neither human nor Xenos as this galaxy defined such terms. A warrior moulded by creators whose methods echo our own, yet diverge in crucial aspects." Samus remained alert, her scan visor recording everything within the chamber for later analysis. The Eldari possessed technology far beyond the crude implements of the Imperium, approaching the sophistication of Choso engineering in certain respects. "You know what I am," she stated rather than asked. "I know what you represent," the Farsia corrected. "A variable unforeseen by all, save the most ancient prophecies. The old texts speak of warriors from beyond the veil clad in living armour that changes with their need. Star children they called such beings destined to walk between worlds when the Necronia rise once more." Samus processed this information with practiced detachment. Prophecy was a poor foundation for tactical planning. Yet these beings clearly possessed means of prediction beyond conventional analysis. Their knowledge might prove useful regardless of its source. "The device that brought me here is destroyed," she said. "I seek a way to repair my suit and either return to my reality or establish a sustainable existence in this one." Iana circled Samus slowly, her ancient eyes studying the Choso armour with analytical precision. "Your technology resonates with principles our ancestors understood before the fall. The manipulating of dimensions, the channeling of energies from beyond conventional space. Primitive compared to the webway, yet sophisticated in its adaptation to physical combat." The Farsi gestured, and the Wraithbone walls shifted, revealing a viewing portal that displayed the surface of Karest. Imperial forces had surrounded the mountain range, dropships deploying Astartes in ever-widening search patterns. Alongside them marched Red Road tech priests, their scanning devices sweeping the terrain for technological signatures. "The servants of their corpse god hunt you with growing desperation." Iana continued. "A new Magos has arrived from Mars itself, one Explorator Hieronymus Rex, bearing authorization from the Fabricator General to secure your technology by any means necessary. His instruments detected the Webway Gate's activation, though they cannot breach its secrets." A second viewing portal opened, showing a different region of Karest. Here, the sands shifted and parted as Necron constructs emerged in precise formation. Monoliths and doomsday arcs assembled around a central figure different from Overlord Sakmet, yet bearing similar signs of authority and antiquity. Von Amos of the Solemnaki dynasty has claimed personal dominion over Karest. The Farseer explained, "The destruction of the prototype celestial Ori has drawn his attention from across the stars. His cryptecs believe your armour contains principles that might restore the device, completing what Sakmet began." Sus absorbed this intelligence, updating her threat assessment protocols. The hunting parties had multiplied, their resources and determination exceeding initial estimates. Long-term evasion was becoming less viable as a strategy. "Why show me this?" she asked. "What do the Eldari stand to gain from my survival?" Iana smiled, the expression containing no warmth. Directness, a trait the Eldari shed long ago, perhaps to our detriment. She gestured, and a third portal opened, revealing a star map of impossible detail, each point of light pulsing with information too complex to decipher at a glance. "The webway weakens," the Farseer stated. "The paths between worlds grow unstable, corrupted by the great enemy's touch and the blind fumbling of human psychers. The technology within your armour resonates with the webway in ways we have not witnessed since before the fall. It represents a principle our artisans have sought for millennia, a means of reinforcing pathways that now crumble into the warp. The truth became clear. You want my suit, just like the others." "We wish to study it," Anna corrected, "to learn principles forgotten even to our oldest archives. In exchange, we offer sanctuary resources to repair your systems and eventually perhaps a path to your home reality." Before Samus could respond, alarms sounded throughout the chamber. The wraithbone walls pulsed with crimson light as warning runes flared to life. Her rushed to a control interface, her hands passing through holographic displays that responded to thought as much as touch. Breach in the outer sanctum, the ranger reported. Imperial forces have penetrated the temporary gate. Librarian presence confirmed, negating our concealment wards. Anna's expression hardened. Impossible. The webway gate was sealed. No human psyker could trace its resonance. Once closed, a new image appeared in the viewing portal. Space Marines in black armor adorned with white crosses and purity seals advanced through the outer chambers of the Eldari sanctuary. At their head moved a figure wreathed in psychic energy, his armor bearing the distinctive hood and staff of a librarian. Behind him came tech priests, their mechadendrites interfacing with strange devices that pulsed with unnatural light. The Mechanicus has adapted Necron technology. Iana realized her voice tight with controlled anger. The device they carry bears the signature of a dimensional resonator, crude but effective. They followed the webway distortion created by your armor's unique energy matrix. Samus understood the tactical situation immediately. The Imperial forces had tracked her through a vulnerability she had not anticipated, using her suit's interaction with the webway as a beacon. The temporary sanctuary offered by the Eldari was compromised before negotiations had even concluded. "How long until they reach this chamber?" she asked, checking her weapon systems. "Minutes at most," Elaric replied. "The outer wards fall quickly to the librarian's power." Iana made a decision, her ancient eyes narrowing with calculation. "The webway has countless paths. We shall use another." She turned to Samus. "Come, what we offer remains valid, but we must reach the craft world itself. There, even the combined might of Necron and human cannot follow." The wraithbone floor shifted beneath them, carrying them swiftly through corridors that seemed to form moments before they arrived and dissolve after they passed. The architecture itself responded to the Farseer's will, creating paths where none had existed and sealing routes to prevent pursuit. They entered a circular chamber dominated by a webway portal larger and more elaborate than the one Samus had initially traversed. Runes of power orbited its frame, each glowing with internal light that shifted through colours beyond conventional spectrum analysis. "The primary gate," Ayana explained, gesturing for her rangers to take defensive positions. "It leads directly to Ul. Once activated, it will remain open for precisely 17 seconds before sealing for a standard cycle. We must all pass through together." The sound of battle reached them from the outer chambers. Bolter fire and the distinctive whine of shuriken catapults echoed through the wraith-bone corridors. The Imperial forces had encountered Eldari defenders, but their advance continued inexorably. Iana began the activation ritual, her hands weaving patterns in the air that left trails of psychic energy visible even to non-psychers. The gate responded, its central void shifting from opaque darkness to translucent potential, revealing glimpses of a realm beyond conventional space. The chamber doors shattered inward. Black Templar's Space Marines charged through the breach, bolters firing with disciplined precision. 2 Eldari Rangers fell immediately, their bodies torn apart by mass-reactive shells designed to detonate after penetration for maximum damage. Samus raised her arm cannon, switching to the wavebeam configuration that could penetrate solid matter. She fired a burst that passed through the ornate pillars, serving as cover for the Space Marines, striking their power packs directly. 2 warriors fell as their backpack reactors overloaded, the resulting explosion consuming a third in cleansing plasma. The librarian stepped through the flames, his force staff pulsing with controlled psychic energy. The Xenos collaborate with the abomination. He intoned, his voice amplified by his helmet's vox emitters. There can be no clearer sign of corruption. Behind him came Magos Explorator Hieronymus Rex, a figure more machine than man. His body was a masterwork of augment engineering, every component gilded and inscribed with prayers to the machine god. Multiple mechadendrites extended from his torso, each tipped with different analysis tools or weapons, the Omnissire's lost child. The Magos addressed Smos directly. "Your machine spirit requires proper sanctification. Submit to examination, and you shall be elevated to your rightful place in the Mechanicus pantheon." The webway gate pulsed as Anna completed the activation sequence. Now she commanded her remaining rangers through the gate. The Eldari moved with practiced coordination, covering each other's retreat as they backed toward the portal. Samus provided suppressing fire, her missiles forcing the Space Marines to seek cover as explosion after explosion tore through the chamber. The abomination must not escape, the librarian declared, raising his force staff. Psychic energy coalesced around him, forming a directed wave that slammed into Samus with unexpected force. Her shields flared bright blue, energy reserves dropping precipitously as they struggled to counteract a form of attack they were never designed to resist. Suit integrity compromised. Her AI warned, unknown energy type penetrating defensive systems. The Magos seized the opportunity, directing his Meshendrites towards Samus as she staggered under the psychic assault. Mechanical tentacles wrapped around her arm cannon interface probes attempting to penetrate the Chozo technology and access its internal systems. Fascinating construction. Hieronymus Rex observed additional optic implants emerging from his skull to better analyze the armor. Biological components integrated at the quantum level. Machine and flesh made one through principles the Mechanicus has sought for millennia. Samus activated her emergency defense protocol. Electrical energy surged through her armor's outer shell, overloading the Magos' Mechondrites and forcing him to retract the damaged appendages. Simultaneously, she fired a charged ice beam at the librarian, momentarily disrupting his concentration as frost formed across his armor, sealing joints and obscuring vision ports. Free from the immediate threats, she turned toward the webway gate. The portal pulsed with growing instability, its 17-second window nearly expired. Iana stood at its threshold, her rangers already passed through to safety. "Hurry," the Farseer urged. "The gate cannot be held open longer without risking catastrophic collapse." The Space Marines recovered quickly, bolter fire hammering Samus's position with relentless accuracy. Each impact further drained her shields, pushing her suit's energy management systems to their limits. The librarian broke free from the ice, his psychic aura burning with renewed intensity and focused purpose. Samus made her calculation. The gate offered uncertain sanctuary with beings whose motives remained suspect at best. The Imperium promised only dissection and desecration of her armor, neither option aligned with optimal survival parameters. She fired a charged plasma shot at the webway gate's control interface, the energy blast striking precisely where Ayana's ritual had focused. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Reality itself seemed to splinter around the portal, dimensional energies suddenly unbound from their carefully maintained constraints. Iana's eyes widened in genuine shock. "What have you done?" she demanded, even as the wraithbone structure around them began to crack and distort. "Creating a third option," Samus replied, activating her morph ball configuration. The webway gate collapsed in upon itself, but rather than simply closing, it imploded with reality-bending force. The dimensional tear expanded beyond its frame, consuming the surrounding architecture in a maelstrom of unleashed potential. Space Marines, tech priests, and Eldari alike found themselves pulled toward the growing singularity as gravity itself surrendered to more fundamental forces. In morph ball form, Samus directed herself not toward the gate nor away from it, but into a precise trajectory that utilized the gravitational forces now tearing the chamber apart. She launched herself toward a structural weakness in the chamber's outer wall, dropping a power bomb that detonated upon impact. The explosion coincided with the complete collapse of the webway gate, the dual catastrophes creating a chain reaction throughout the structure. Walls disintegrated, floors buckled, and ceilings gave way as Wraithbone, stressed beyond its material limitations, failed catastrophically. Samus emerged from the destruction, her morph ball configuration protecting her from the worst of the impact forces. She uncurled, resuming her humanoid form amid the ruins of what had been the Eldari sanctuary. All around her, Wraithbone fragments smouldered with psychic resonance, slowly dissolving as the energies that had sustained them dissipated into the void. Of the Space Marines, tech priests, and Eldari, there was no sign. The collapsing webway gate had created a localized dimensional instability that likely displaced them to unknown locations within the webway itself, a labyrinth from which few emerged without guides. Damage assessment, she sub-vocalized. Power reserves 38%, structural integrity 82%, weaponry limited functionality. Navigation online. She had survived, but at significant cost. The confrontation had revealed new threats and new possibilities. The Eldari possessed knowledge that might prove valuable, while the Imperium had demonstrated unexpected adaptability in tracking her dimensional signature. Both would continue their hunt with renewed determination after this encounter. Sama scanned her surroundings, establishing her position relative to the surface of Karest. The Aldari Sanctuary had existed partially in real space and partially in the webway, making conventional navigation impossible. Now with its destruction, she found herself deep beneath the planet's surface in what appeared to be ancient catacombs untouched for millennia. Her visor adjusted to the absolute darkness, revealing walls covered in geometric patterns identical to those observed in the Necron Pyramid. This was another tomb complex, perhaps connected to the one she had originally encountered, but apparently undisturbed by the awakening that had occurred elsewhere on the planet. Her AI reported Necron stasis signatures detected. Status dormant. Estimated quantity: 6,722 units. An entire legion of Necron warriors slumbered around her. Their systems powered down to minimal levels that barely registered even on her advanced scanners. Any significant energy discharge might trigger awakening protocols, bringing thousands of immortal killing machines to consciousness in her immediate vicinity. Moving with deliberate care, Sus navigated the catacombs, her steps precise and her energy signature suppressed to minimal levels. Her scan visor mapped the complex as she proceeded, revealing a structure of immense proportions, extending for kilometers in all directions. This was no mere outpost, but a major tomb complex, perhaps the true heart of the Solemn dynasty's presence on Karest. After hours of cautious exploration, she discovered a chamber different from the others. Unlike the geometric precision of Necron architecture, this space contained elements that appeared almost organic, their surfaces flowing in curves rather than angles. At the chamber's center stood a device unlike any she had encountered in this universe, its design resonating with familiar principles despite its alien construction. Energy signature analysis complete. Her suit reported. Technology classification, dimensional stabilizer, partial compatibility with suit systems detected. SAS approached the device carefully, her scan visor dissecting its operational parameters layer by layer. The machine appeared to be neither fully Necron nor consistent with any known Aldari design. It incorporated principles from multiple technological traditions as though deliberately constructed to bridge incompatible systems. Her visor highlighted interface points compatible with her armor connection nodes that would allow direct interaction between her suit systems and the ancient device. The risk was substantial. Connecting to unknown technology always carried the potential for catastrophic failure or hostile takeover attempts. Yet the potential reward, a means of stabilizing her suit's dimensional resonance and perhaps eventually creating a path home, justified careful experimentation. Samus activated her most aggressive security protocols, isolating critical systems behind multiple firewalls before extending an energy tendril from her arm cannon toward the primary interface node. Connection established, data began to flow both ways, her suit analyzing the device's functions while it in turn seemed to study her technology with equal curiosity. Warning: active intelligence detected in target system. Her AI alerted. Patterns consistent with advanced machine learning but distinct from known hostile architectures. The device responded to her connection, ancient systems awakening after eons of dormancy. Holographic displays materialized around it, projecting symbols and equations of mind-bending complexity. These were not Necron glyphs, nor Aldari runes, but something more primal, as though representing the fundamental language of reality itself. Through the connection, understanding flowed into Samus's consciousness. The device was a beacon created by beings who had recognized the dimensional instability plaguing this galaxy eons before the current inhabitants had evolved. It was designed to establish and maintain connections between realities that should remain separate, a bridge between worlds created for purposes lost to time. More shocking was the realization that the device recognized her armor, not specifically but categorically. As technology descended from principles compatible with its own, the Choso, in their dimensional explorations, had perhaps encountered the creators of this beacon, sharing knowledge across boundaries of space and time. The device offered a choice, presented not in words, but in pure conceptual understanding. It could stabilize her suit, allowing it to function properly in this reality, without the constant energy drain caused by dimensional incompatibility. Or it could begin calculating a path home, a process that would require time and significant power, but could eventually create a stable gateway to her universe of origin. The decision was momentarily forestalled by a tremor that shook the entire complex. Dust fell from ancient ceilings as the vibrations intensified, not the result of natural seismic activity, but coordinated explosives placed with strategic precision. Through her connection to the beacon, Samus perceived what was happening on the surface. Imperial forces had deployed planet cracker bombs at key points around the tomb complex, attempting to breach the outer defences and reach the valuable technology their sensors had detected deep below. The Mechanicus, having lost their prize once, had opted for the most direct approach possible. Simultaneously, the dormant Necrons throughout the complex began to stir, awakening not fully, but entering a heightened alert state as their tomb was violated. Warning signals propagated through systems dormant for millions of years, preparing legions of immortal warriors to defend their domain once more. Samus made her decision. Survival in this reality required adaptation, not escape. She directed the beacon to stabilize her suit, to modify its energy matrix to function in harmony with the physical laws of this universe, rather than fighting against them constantly. The process began immediately, energy flowing from the ancient device into her armor. Her systems responded, reconfiguring at the quantum level to accommodate new parameters. Power readings stabilized, then began to rise as her suit achieved greater efficiency in this previously hostile environment. Power systems recalibrating. Her AI reported dimensional resonance stabilizing. Estimated completion time 6 minutes 43 seconds. The tremors intensified. Through the beacon's expanded awareness, Samus witnessed Imperial forces breaching the outer chambers of the tomb complex. Space Marines of the Black Templars chapter led the assault, their bolters cutting down the first wave of awakening Necron warriors with practiced efficiency. Behind them came the tech priests, their sensors focused on the energy signature emanating from her position. From the opposite direction approached a different threat. Fonamus himself had entered the complex accompanied by his royal court of Lichguard and Cryptex. The ancient ruler moved with purpose, his consciousness directly connected to every Necron warrior in the tomb. Through countless eyes, he had located the source of the dimensional disturbance, recognizing both its nature and its value. Samus stood at the center of converging forces, the recalibration process only half complete. Disengaging prematurely would likely damage her suit beyond repair, potentially trapping her with permanently compromised systems. Remaining meant confrontation with enemies approaching from multiple vectors, or determined to claim her and the beacon for their own purposes. As the first sounds of battle reached her chamber, Necron warriors engaging Imperial forces in the outer corridors, Samus reached a tactical conclusion. Direct confrontation was suboptimal. Strategic withdrawal and subsequent counterattack offered higher probability of success. Recalibration accelerated. Her AI announced, "Warning, potential system instability. Proceed, proceed." She confirmed. The risk was necessary. The beacon responded to her decision, channeling additional energy into her suit at rates that pushed components to their structural limits. Armor plates glowed with internal light as Choso technology adapted to new fundamental constants, rewriting operational parameters established by its creators. 3 minutes later, Imperial and Necron forces converged on the chamber from opposite entrances. Space Marines in Terminator armor breached one doorway, while Lichguard entered through another. Both paused momentarily at the sight before them, their advance halting as they processed what they witnessed. Samus stood encased in a sphere of energy that connected her to the beacon, the two technologies having achieved temporary symbiosis. Her armor had changed, its orange and gold now complemented by traceries of green energy that pulsed in time with the beacon's power cycles. The modification was not merely cosmetic, but fundamental. Her suit now incorporating principles from the ancient device into its core functionality. The abomination defiles sacred technology, declared the Black Templars chaplain leading the Space Marine assault. Purge it with righteous fire. The anomaly integrates with the celestial Ori control node, observed a Necron Cryptech. His analysis transmitted directly to Fonamosi. Capture it intact. The dynasty requires both for ascension. Both forces opened fire simultaneously. Heavy bolter rounds and G-beams converged on Samus's position from multiple angles, a crossfire designed to prevent escape rather than cause immediate destruction. Both factions valued the technology too highly to risk its complete loss. The recalibration completed with perfect timing. Energy flared outward from Samus's armor in a shockwave that temporarily disrupted all systems in the chamber, Imperial and Necron alike. In that moment of confusion, she activated her newly enhanced speed booster, the technology now drawing power efficiently from the ambient energy of this universe, rather than struggling against its physical laws. She became a blur of motion, weaving between opponents, frozen in her accelerated perception. Space Marines tracked with impressive reflexes but fired too late, their bolter rounds passing through empty air where she had been milliseconds before. Necron warriors, despite their advanced technology, found their targeting systems unable to establish locks on her constantly shifting position. Samus reached the chamber's far exit, a corridor leading deeper into the tomb complex rather than toward the surface. Strategic assessment indicated higher survival probability by moving away from the main forces temporarily, creating distance before attempting to break through to the surface. The Space Marines attempted pursuit, but found their Terminator armor too cumbersome for the narrow passageways she chose. The Necrons followed with cold persistence, their immortal nature rendering concerns of attrition irrelevant. They would hunt for decades if necessary, their programming allowing nothing less than complete mission fulfillment. Deep within the labyrinthine tomb complex, Sus found what she sought. Her scan visor identified an ancient transportation system, similar to the teleportation technology used in the Necron Pyramid, but apparently predating it by eons. The system appeared to connect not merely to different locations on Karas, but to other worlds entirely, a network spanning star systems. The controls responded to her interface attempt, recognizing the beacon's energy signature, now integrated into her armor. Destination options appeared as holographic projections, each representing a different location across the galaxy. Some showed tomb worlds similar to Cass, while others displayed environments ranging from verdant jungle planets to the void of deep space. One destination registered as anomalous, its quantum signature fluctuating in patterns her suit identified as similar to dimensional gates encountered in her home reality. The coordinates suggested a location far from Imperial space, beyond even the astronomical charts contained in the Mechanicus archives she had accessed. Necron forces approached her position, their methodical advance leaving no corridor unchecked. The transportation system required 30 seconds to establish the necessary energy field for transit, time she would need to defend against determined attackers. Samus prepared her position, deploying mines at key junctures in the approaching corridors. Her newly calibrated weaponry functioned with unprecedented efficiency, each shot carrying greater destructive potential while consuming less energy. The modifications had transformed her from survivor to predator once more. The first wave of Necron warriors rounded the corner and immediately encountered her defenses. Plasma mines detonated in sequence, their energy pulses precisely calibrated to disrupt the reanimation protocols that made Necron so difficult to destroy permanently. Warriors collapsed as their phase shifters failed. Living metal rendered temporarily inert by the specialized attack. More advanced units followed. Lichard, whose dispersion shields absorbed conventional energy attacks without effect. Samus switched to her newly calibrated wave beam, the weapon now incorporating principles learned from the beacon. The shots passed through the Necron shields as though they did not exist, striking the warriors directly and disrupting their internal systems. Transport sequence initiated, her AI confirmed. Field stabilization at 60% and rising. A new presence entered the chamber. Phron Armosi himself appeared, teleporting directly into the space rather than approaching through the corridors. His ancient form radiated power beyond anything Samus had encountered since arriving in this universe. The accumulated knowledge and technology of millions of years focused into a single entity. Interesting, the Phon observed, his voice bypassing conventional sound to manifest directly in Samus's consciousness. You have integrated the beacon's principles into your technology, an adaptation unforeseen by our predictive engines. Samus raised her arm cannon, energy coalescing at its tip. The Necron Lord made no move to attack or defend, his posture suggesting curiosity rather than immediate hostility. The technology you have claimed was not created by the Necron tier, Akmos continued. It predates even our ascension to living metal. Its creators walked between realities when the first stars of this galaxy were yet young. We studied their principles but never fully mastered them. The transport field continued to build around Smos, now at 80% stabilization. The anomalous coordinates remained selected, the system preparing to send her beyond known space to a destination that promised either salvation or greater peril. You seek to leave, the Phaeon stated, to continue your journey beyond our domain. This is acceptable, provided you carry something with you. A small object materialized in the air between them, a perfect cube of living metal no larger than a human fist. Its surface rippled with internal energy, green light pulsing beneath geometric patterns of impossible complexity. A quantum engram explained containing a fragment of the Solemn dynasty's accumulated knowledge regarding dimensional transit. Take it with you. Study it. Perhaps one day you will return with insights our civilization has yet to achieve. Samus analyzed the cube with her scan visor. The object contained data storage mechanisms beyond even Choso engineering, potentially holding information equivalent to entire planetary archives within its compact form. The diplomatic gesture was unexpected, a calculated investment rather than an act of generosity. "Why would you give this to me?" she questioned, not lowering her weapon. "The Necronia Empire spanned galaxies before your species existed," Aramos replied. "We learned patience. Your technology represents principles we once studied but never fully mastered. You will uncover applications we have not considered, and when you return, the exchange will benefit both parties." "Transport sequence at 95%, her AI reported privately. "Field stabilization optimal." Behind the Ferran, more Necron forces teleported into the chamber, Lichguard and Cryptex positioning themselves in defensive formation. They made no aggressive moves, but established clear control over all potential exit routes except the transportation pad itself. Simultaneously, the sounds of battle grew closer. The Imperial forces had broken through the outer defences, their advance marked by the distinctive roar of bolter fire and the mechanical chants of the Adeptus Mechanicus. They would reach this chamber within minutes, adding further complexity to an already volatile situation. Samus made her decision. She reached out and grasped the quantum engram, integrating it into a specialized storage compartment within her arm cannon. The cube interfaced seamlessly with her systems, its data remaining isolated behind multiple security firewalls, but accessible for future analysis. "I make no promises of return," she stated plainly. The Necron Lord inclined his head slightly, the gesture almost imperceptible. "The stars will burn for eons, yet time is a resource the Necronia possess in abundance. Transportation sequence complete. Her AI confirmed field stability at optimal parameters. Energy coalesced around Smos, the ancient system preparing to translate her across vast interstellar distances. The process differed from conventional teleportation, creating a momentary fold in space-time itself, rather than disassembling and reassembling matter. Her armor integrated with the technology, providing additional stability to the dimensional corridor about to form. As the transport field reached activation threshold, Imperial forces breached the final corridor. Space Marines of the Black Templars charged forward, their bolters already firing at the Necron defenders. Behind them came Magos Explorator Hieronymus Rex, his augmented body bristling with scanning equipment focused directly on Samus. "The prize escapes," the Magos called, his vox emitters overloading with distress. "All forces converge, the Omnissiah demands its capture." The Space Marines adjusted their focus immediately, concentrating fire on Samus's position, even as they engaged the Necron defenders. Bolter rounds impacted the transport field, creating ripples of distortion, but failing to penetrate the energy barrier, now seconds from activation. Ferran Amos raised his staff, directing his forces to intercept the Imperial advance. "The anomaly has chosen its path," he declared. "None shall interfere with the experiment. The transport system activated fully." Reality itself seemed to fold around Smos, her perception stretching and compressing simultaneously as conventional physics temporarily surrendered to more fundamental forces. The chamber, the battling forces, the tomb world itself, all receded into infinity as the transportation corridor established itself across interstellar distances. For what seemed like both an instant and eternity, she existed between spaces. Her consciousness expanded beyond normal parameters by the transition process. Her suit systems recorded sensory data that defied classification, phenomena that could not exist within normal spacetime, yet manifested within the transportation corridor. Then, with a concussive wave of displaced energy, she materialized at her destination. Samus found herself standing on a desolate plain beneath an alien sky. 3 moons of varying sizes hung overhead, their surfaces scarred by impact craters visible even from planetary distance. The atmosphere registered as breathable but thin, the gravity approximately 87% of Terra standard. According to Mechanicus reference data, her visor adapted to the new environment, cataloguing atmospheric composition, radiation levels, and gravitational variations. Preliminary analysis suggested a world untouched by human colonization, located in a region identified in Imperial charts as the halo stars beyond the boundaries of controlled space. Location analysis complete. Her suit reported, designated coordinates match stellar configuration of System V94, unexplored frontier region. Imperial designation, Perditus Extremis. The quantum signature that had attracted her attention became clear. This world existed partially phase-shifted from conventional reality, its matter oscillating between dimensions at frequencies imperceptible to most technology. The effect created natural barriers against warp travel and conventional detection, a perfect hiding place in a galaxy consumed by eternal war. Scanning her surroundings more thoroughly, Samus detected artificial structures on the horizon. Unlike the brutalist architecture of the Imperium or the living metal geometries of the Necrons, these constructions featured smooth curves and delicate spires that seemed to flow upward from the landscape itself. They resembled nothing so much as the organic technology of the Choso, though clearly of different origin. As she approached the structures, her suit detected energy readings consistent with active technology. The power signature registered as neither Imperial nor Xenos by the classifications downloaded from the Mechanicus archives. It represented something older, perhaps predating even the ancient Aldari Empire. The central structure resolved into a perfect dome of material that resembled neither metal nor stone, but something between, its surface iridescent under the alien sunlight. No visible entrance presented itself. Yet, as Samus approached, a section of the wall simply ceased to exist, creating an archway precisely suited to her height. Inside, the dome contained a single vast chamber. At its centre stood a platform surrounded by holographic displays showing star maps, mathematical equations, and diagrams of mind-bending complexity. The technology hummed with quiet efficiency, maintained by systems that had apparently operated without interruption for millennia. Most significant was the structure at the chamber's heart, a dimensional gate, similar in principle to those she had used in her home reality, but incorporating design elements she had never encountered. It stood dormant, its framework intact, but its power systems inactive, awaiting proper activation protocols. Technology analysis complete, her AI reported. Gate structure compatible with modified suit systems. Dimensional transit theoretically possible with sufficient power input and coordinate calculation. Samus approached the control interface, her scan visor translating the alien symbology into parameters her systems could interpret. The gate had been constructed by beings who called themselves the Jotun, a species that had evolved not in physical space, but in the dimensional boundaries between realities. They had established outposts throughout this galaxy millions of years ago before withdrawing as younger races began their ascension. This particular installation served as both observatory and transit hub, allowing the Jotun to monitor this reality while maintaining connections to others. It had been abandoned during what the records call the time of severing, when barriers between dimensions had been deliberately strengthened to prevent some catastrophic intrusion from beyond normal space. The quantum engram provided by Ferron Armosi contained information that complemented the gate's operational data. The Necrons had studied Jotun technology extensively, attempting to adapt its principles to their own purposes. Their understanding remained incomplete, but combined with the installation's original systems and SAS Chozo technology, it created a functional framework for potential dimensional transit, calculating probability of successful return to origin universe. Her AI processed variables exceed standard parameters, multiple unknown factors, best estimate 73% chance of reaching target reality with current available data. Before deciding her next action, Samus established a defensive perimeter around the installation. Her experiences in this universe had demonstrated that nothing of value remained undiscovered for long. The dimensional anomalies that had attracted her to this location would eventually draw other attention, whether Imperial, Necron, Aldari, or something worse. Using materials from the installation and components fabricated by her suit, she created a network of automated defense turrets and early warning systems. The technology integrated smoothly, suggesting deliberate compatibility between Jotun and Choso engineering principles, despite evolving in separate universes. The parallels were too precise for coincidence, implying some ancient connection between the civilizations. With the perimeter secured, Essas turned her full attention to the dimensional gate. Activating it required three components: sufficient power, precise coordinational data for the target universe, and a stabilization mechanism to prevent catastrophic collapse during transit. Her modified suit could provide stability, and the installation contained power generation capabilities that could be restored to functionality. The greatest challenge remained accurate targeting. The quantum engram contained theoretical models of dimensional mapping far beyond anything the Choso had achieved. Using these principles, her suit began calculating potential coordinates based on its recorded quantum signature from her home universe. The process would require time, each potential target requiring extensive modeling to determine viability. As days turned to weeks, Samus explored the surrounding region, cataloguing flora and fauna unlike any documented in the Mechanicus archives. The planet's phase shifted, nature had allowed evolution to progress along paths impossible in conventional space, creating life forms that existed partially in dimensions beyond normal perception. Her visor required continuous recalibration to track entities that shifted between planes of existence as naturally as Terran creatures move through water or air. She encountered no sentient species, but found evidence of previous habitation. Ruins of settlements constructed from the same materials as the central installation dotted the landscape, suggesting this world had once hosted a significant Jotun population. Their departure appeared methodical rather than forced, a deliberate withdrawal rather than extinction. During her 17th week on the planet, the defense grid registered approaching vessels. Imperial ships bearing the distinctive skull and cog iconography of the Adeptus Mechanicus had entered the system. Their approach was cautious, sensors sweeping for the anomalous energy signature that had led them to this remote location. Sus returned to the central installation, reviewing the dimensional gate status. The power systems had been restored to 86% capacity, sufficient for activation, but with minimal margin for error. Coordinate calculations had produced 3 potential targets, each representing a different quantum state that might correspond to her home reality. The targeting system could not guarantee precise universal alignment, introducing variables beyond predictive modeling. The decision point had arrived sooner than optimal. Remaining meant inevitable confrontation with Imperial forces whose technological capabilities had proven more adaptable than initially assessed. Activating the gate with incomplete calculations risked transit to an incorrect reality, potentially one even more hostile than the war-torn galaxy she currently inhabited. Samus reviewed the quantum engram's contents one final time, searching for insights that might improve targeting accuracy. Among the theoretical models and dimensional mathematics, she discovered a conceptual framework the Necrons had never fully implemented. The engram contained a theory of quantum entanglement operating across dimensional boundaries, suggesting that technology from the same origin point maintained subtle connections regardless of universal displacement. Her armor, despite modifications and adaptations, retained its fundamental Choso nature. That connection, that quantum thread to its creators, might serve as a beacon more precise than any calculated coordinates. The gate could theoretically lock onto this signature, using it to navigate the dimensional void toward its matching resonance. The Imperial vessels entered orbit, their auger arrays focusing on the installation's location. Dropships separated from the main vessels, beginning atmospheric entry on trajectories that would bring them to her position within hours. The hunting psalm of the Adeptus Mechanicus broadcast on all frequencies, a machine litany that promised salvation through submission to the Omnissiah's will. Samus made her choice. She integrated the quantum engram fully into her armor systems, allowing its theoretical models to merge with her suit's operational parameters. The combination created a dimensional resonance beacon that amplified her armor's connection to its origin universe, a signal that would theoretically guide the gate's targeting mechanism across the void between realities. As the first Imperial dropships touched down beyond her defensive perimeter, she activated the dimensional gate. Energy surged through systems dormant for millions of years, the framework humming with power as reality itself began to warp around the activation point. The installation's automated systems responded to the increasing gravitational distortion, reinforcing structural integrity as space-time curved inward toward the forming portal. The defense grid engaged the advancing Mechanicus forces. Rangers fell to precision energy blasts as they attempted to breach the outer perimeter. their deaths logged by impassive machine spirits that calculated kill ratios with cold efficiency. Larger combat units deployed from secondary dropships, Castellon robots, and Caphron battle servitors designed to absorb damage that would destroy conventional troops. Inside the installation, the dimensional gate reached critical activation threshold. The portal stabilized into a perfect sphere of energy, its surface rippling with patterns identical to those observed when she had first arrived in this universe. Her armor's resonance beacons synchronized with the gate's targeting systems, establishing a dimensional vector aimed at the quantum signature of her home reality. Through the defense grid sensor feed, Samus witnessed the arrival of a more significant threat. A massive ship had entered orbit, its hull bearing the distinctive markings of a Mechanicus ark. Mechanicus, a vessel containing technology normally forbidden even to the priests of Mars. From its landing bays emerged specialized units, their forms suggesting adaptation to her previously demonstrated capabilities. Time had run out. With the dimensional gate fully operational and targeting locked to her armor's quantum signature, Samus prepared for transit. The portal pulsed with increasing energy, the boundary between universes growing thinner with each power cycle. Soon, it would achieve the necessary dimensional penetration to create a stable pathway. The installation's outer defenses fell as specialized Mechanicus units deployed phase inverter technology, temporarily shifting their material state to bypass conventional barriers. Infiltrators advanced through solid walls, their neurostatic weapons designed to disable electronic systems without damaging valuable technology. Behind them came the commanding figure Archmagos Dominos Korvac, his ancient form housing computational power sufficient to process an entire Forge World's data stream simultaneously. The anomaly prepares dimensional translation. The Archmagos observed through 1,000 sensor arrays. All units converge. The Omnissiah's lost child must be returned to the fold. The dimensional gate reached final activation stage. Reality buckled around the portal as fundamental forces struggled against the artificial connection between universes. The installation system strained to contain the energies involved. Ancient technology pushed beyond intended parameters by the emergency activation. Samus stood at the threshold of universes, the pathway home materializing before her after months of calculation and adaptation. Through the portal, she glimpsed fragments of familiar space, stars arranged in patterns recorded in her suit's navigational archives. The quantum resonance confirmed probability of correct universal alignment at 92%, the highest achievable without extended calculation. As she prepared to step through, a final communication reached her systems. Not from the advancing Mechanicus forces, but from a source that should have been impossible across such vast distances. The experiment proceeds as anticipated, came the voice of Von Amos, somehow transmitting through the quantum engram integrated into her armor. Your journey serves the Solemnus dynasty. The data gathered will prove invaluable when you eventually return. None escape the great work. The implications were clear. The quantum engram served multiple purposes, not merely providing information, but establishing a connection that transcended conventional space. The Necrons had planted a beacon within her systems, a means of tracking her journey across dimensional boundaries for their own inscrutable purposes. There was no time to purge the engram from her systems. The Mechanicus forces had breached the inner sanctum, Skitarii Vanguard, advancing with radiation weapons designed to penetrate her armor's energy shielding. The dimensional gate had achieved stable configuration, but would collapse within minutes as the installation's power systems reached critical depletion. Smos made her final decision in this universe. She activated her arm cannon's overload protocol, channeling energy into a single devastating pulse, aimed not at her attackers, but at the quantum engram storage module within her armor. The blast would potentially damage her own systems, but would sever the connection established by the Necrons, preventing them from gathering data from her transit, or potentially following her path. The energy pulse fired internally, precisely targeted to destroy the engram while minimizing damage to surrounding systems. Her armor registered the impact, power fluctuations cascading through subsystems as the quantum connection shattered. Warning notifications flashed across her visor, damage reports highlighting compromised components that would require repair once transit completed. Necron quantum signature eliminated, her AI confirmed dimensional targeting stability reduced to 78%. Recommend immediate transit before further degradation. The first Skitarii Vanguard units entered the chamber, their radium carbines already firing. Deadly radiation washed over her position, her shields flaring bright blue as they struggled to neutralize the atomic disruption. Fact. Behind them came Archmagos Kovac, his ancient form housing weapons and analysis tools designed specifically for her capture. The prize will not escape the Omnissiah's embrace. The Archmaeos intoned Meandrites extending toward the dimensional gate's control systems. All knowledge returns to Mars. Samus fired a final salvo, precision shots that severed the mechadendrites before they could interface with the gate controls. Then, with her pursuers mere meters away, she stepped backward into the portal, the dimensional boundary washing over her armor like a wave of liquid energy. Transit between universes differed from conventional teleportation, or faster than light travel. For a subjective eternity that instruments recorded as 3.7 seconds, Samus existed in a state beyond conventional definition. Her consciousness expanded to perceive realities layered upon realities, each with its own physical laws and evolutionary paths. She glimpsed fragments of infinite possibilities, universes where humanity had evolved differently, becoming psychic masters rather than technological conquerors. Realities where the Necrons had triumphed completely, transforming all matter into living metal under their dominion. Dimensions where the concept of organic life had never emerged. Fundamental forces combining to create sentience from energy patterns alone. Among this kaleidoscope of potential, she perceived her target reality, its quantum signature resonating with her armor despite the engram's destruction. Her suit's navigational systems locked onto this resonance, drawing her through the dimensional currents toward the universal configuration that matched her origin point. The transit completed with a concussive wave of displaced energy. Samus materialized in familiar space, her armor's sensors immediately recognizing the background radiation patterns and fundamental constants of her home universe. She stood on an abandoned space station, its architecture clearly of Galactic Federation design, though long deserted. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the facility, automated systems responding to the dimensional breach with programmed defense protocols. Her visor translated the station's identification markers, placing it in a remote sector near the borders of Federation space. According to the timestamp on emergency broadcasts, less than 1 standard year had passed since her disappearance through the collapsing gate. As Samus moved through the abandoned corridors, her systems continuing to stabilize after the dimensional transit, she reflected on the universe left behind, a reality of eternal war, where ancient empires risen from tombs, battled against human fanatics and demonic horrors, a galaxy where every faction sought dominance through technology they barely understood, and where her armor had represented a prize worth crossing stars to obtain. She had escaped that nightmare, returned to familiar space where the threats, while deadly, followed rules she comprehended. Yet she carried with her knowledge that changed her perspective fundamentally. The dimensional barrier was more permeable than previously understood, the multiverse more accessible to those with sufficient technology. The war-torn galaxy she had visited might eventually develop the means to extend their conflicts beyond their own reality, bringing their apocalyptic battles to new frontiers. More immediately concerning was the data collected by her suit during transit. Though she'd destroyed the Necron quantum engram, her armor had recorded the dimensional coordinates of the gate on both sides of the journey. Theoretical models now existed within her systems that could potentially recreate the connection, establishing a pathway between universes that others might exploit. This knowledge represented both opportunity and threat. The capacity for dimensional transit could revolutionize exploration and potentially solve resource scarcity across multiple civilizations. Yet, it also created vectors for invasion from realities hostile to organic life. As she understood it, forces against which even the Choso might have no effective defense. The station's communication array remained functional despite years of abandonment. Samus could transmit her location to the Federation, arrange extraction, and return to the cycle of missions and hunting that had defined her existence. Or she could maintain silence, using the facility's resources to analyze the dimensional data more thoroughly, before deciding how or if such knowledge should be shared. A third option presented itself as her scan visor detected an anomalous energy signature in the station's research section. The pattern matched technologies she had encountered on previous missions, suggesting Choso origin, but with modifications consistent with space pirate experimentation. Someone had been using this abandoned outpost to conduct research on dimensional technology. perhaps detecting the energy wave that had marked her arrival in this universe after the gate collapse. The war-torn galaxy had changed her, its constant existential threats and ancient technologies expanding her understanding of what was possible. She had adapted, integrated new principles into her armor, and survived conflicts beyond anything previously encountered. Now she carried knowledge that could reshape the balance of power in her home universe for better or worse. Samus checked her weapon systems, confirmed shield regeneration progress, and moved deeper into the station. Whatever awaited in the research section represented a new mission, a new hunt. The journey through dimensions had ended, but her path continued, shaped by experiences in a universe where there was only war. As distant stars burned in eternal silence, Samus Aran walked toward the unknown, her armor gleaming with power drawn from realities beyond mortal comprehension. The hunter had returned, bringing with her secrets of other worlds and the means to reach them. Whether salvation or destruction would follow remained to be determined, one mission at a time.